Very good.
All right, welcome everybody to the first episode of the Den Discussions. I'm joined by head men's aquatics coach Jason Northcott and an athlete from the men's water polo team, Ethan Saenz. Hope I'm pronouncing that right, Ethan.
Fine.
Well, thanks for joining me. Jason, we'll start with you. Just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your time at RCC.
Sure. My name is Jason Northcott, the head men's water polo coach, head men's swim coach. Work very closely as a whole aquatics program with the women's head coach, Doug Finfrock. We've been working together at RCC for a long time, for about 14 years. Originally, I went to RCC, made a quick detour. I mean, I know I'm going to get a little deep into this, but just this is how my path led to here. But after a couple of years at RCC, ended up going to culinary school, worked in kitchens for about 5 years until me and my wife, we got pregnant, decided to make a change, and went back to my roots with water polo and swim in the aquatics. And I started in 2006, started assistant coaching the men's water polo team. And then after that, I became the men's swim team as well. And then until I took over for my mentor, Nate Haas, back in, I don't know, was that 7-8 years ago now. And so I've been here ever since. Came from RCC, now I'm back at my home.
Full circle.
Full circle. So yeah, for 14 years now, coaching at RCC, and it's a plan to never leave.
At least 25 more, right?
Yeah, minimum. Yeah.
And Ethan, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us about your experience at RCC?
Well, I went to RCC really because I didn't know what I was going to major in, and I didn't really see the point in going to a 4-year and spending all that money when I don't even know what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. I still wanted to play water polo, and so RCC was just kind of a perfect fit, you know. And honestly, everything's run really smoothly at RCC with classes and water polo. Everyone's really helpful, and yeah, it's a really good experience that I could have had, and I don't regret not going to RCC or whatever, or going to RCC. And
Nico, I knew Ethan for a few years before he was even looking for college, because his brother Jonah played for us as well. So he followed in that path as well.
So you have deep roots at RCC, Ethan.
Yeah, and most of my family went there too. So they didn't play sports, but yeah.
So speaking of family, Ethan, we'll hop to that question. Every time I'm on the pool deck watching the men's aquatics a game, I always hear, your dad specifically, screaming in support of you. He's a Tiger background, which is huge for us. Talk about the family influence and what that's meant to you during your journey, both playing and just going through your academic career.
My dad he first coached me in baseball when I was really young. And so when I decided to make the switch, because I followed my brother into water polo, he always goes back, "Oh, you're such a great baseball player. You're the baseball player of the family." I was like, well, I didn't really want to play baseball anymore. So I went to water polo. And so he kind of struggled with that, not being my coach, and didn't know anything about water polo. So he was just yelling at whenever we get punched or something like that, or we got fouled out or something like that. And then he got to the point where he became a certified ref just to know about the game. And it's still, even though he knew, he got the other side of it where parents were yelling at him, it still didn't really slow him down, aspect. But yeah, and he's just been a great support, really. I mean, you just gotta kind of know he comes with me, You can't have me without him, and he's always just my biggest support. My mom too. She's quiet, but she's very supportive as well. And yeah, it's pretty much, they've always been there, very supportive of me.
It's a strong package deal for sure. So,
yeah.
So you said that you were a baseball player, growing up. What sparked your interest in water polo? I'm curious to understand that transition. I feel like it's pretty drastic.
It is very drastic. My brother got into it. He's a baseball player too. He got into it through like a family friend. He just wasn't having water polo or having baseball, sorry. And so my brother joined a year before high school in club. And then he went into high school, and then he made varsity as a freshman. And so I was about 10 at that time, and I kind of tried it. I went from baseball to one club year at water polo. And then I quit water polo and went back to baseball. And I played it, and then I honestly just think I got burnt out on baseball. I was on 2 travel ball teams when I was 11 and playing 7 days a week, 2 practices a day. And I think I just got burnt out on it. I mean, I still love baseball, but it's just like, I don't know if I can grind as much as I can grind at water polo, So yeah, and then I went to water polo and then stuck with it ever since.
There is a beneficial crossover, Nico, from baseball players to water polo. It's one where if you watch a water polo game, at least as a coach, you can almost immediately identify one of the athletes that began as a baseball player. There's no other motion. The shooting motion of a water polo. The only other sport that's similar in that way is throwing the baseball, especially someone that throws the baseball hard and far. So there's a strong mechanical connection there that actually is extremely beneficial in water polo. And as water polo coaches, recruiting athletes, baseball players are kind of where you start.
Well, we'll have to hide this interview from our head baseball coach because now we know that you're going to head out to the diamond and try to poach his players.
Is that a violation, or I'm not?
I think it might be a successful collaboration. We'd have to see. But Ethan,
I'll get rid of you, Paul.
But it seemed like it was, a flawless transition for you. I mean, you had a fantastic year. You led your team in goals with 54. You were second on the team in steals with 33, and you were named to the first team all-conference for the Orange Empire Conference. What do you have to do to prepare in order to be a successful attacker that you are?
I mean, I don't really see myself as an attacker. It's more of a opportunist, kind of. I'm in there the whole time, so I have enough time to make all those plays. And really, it's just kind of trying to see in the field. And, I'm not thinking every single play that I have to score. I rarely think, I need to score, unless it's like a end of the game scenario and coach tells me you need to shoot. Really, it just goes down to, honestly, I just play defense, really. That's all I can do. I don't have a system for it. I just play defense, and then it transitions into offense, really. So, yeah.
Ethan, Nico, he's the example almost. He personifies what you teach coaching wise, right? I mean, you hear this in basketball, you hear it in a lot of other sports that great defense leads to great offense, right? So, and when you pound that in as a philosophy, is everything is foundational to defense, then that it leads to great opportunities on offense. And Ethan's one that actually takes that to heart. He trained every day like that for years, and he actually embodies that as a player. And it's like what he's saying, because he was our center guard for 2 years at RCC, primarily our center guard. But they also put himself in opportunities as a post-up player, even straight up center, as a driver, as a perimeter shooter. He always found ways, and I like how he said opportunist, because that's it. He just makes reads and put himself in a position to succeed and help his team.
Yeah, I saw him say opportunist. I saw a little smirk on your face. So it seems like the coaching philosophy stuck with Ethan. And Jay, I want to kind of get into that coaching philosophy. I mean, you had so much success ever since you set foot on campus at RCC, multiple 3C2A Southern regional appearances. You guys have always been a powerhouse at the state level, obviously at the OEC level. So what's your concoction for all this success? How do you get it done year by year?
Well, we had great mentorship. You're talking about from the minute I got there. Well, yeah, because I came in behind greats like Nate Haas and Dave Almquist, and then alongside another great in Doug Finfrock. And so we all closely collaborated. I wouldn't even say collaborated; it's just like a family, and become a single brain. And so I learned from the best, and so that's definitely where that comes from. And then if you're talking like, I guess in the micro, it's just about putting the student athletes first. I mean, if you're talking about success, it's that we're completely engaged. Every one of our staff, by the way, everyone on our staff attended RCC and was in the program at one point or another. So again, that whole idea of family. And we're completely engaged with every single one of our student athletes. We require a lot, we demand a lot, right? We push a lot, but also I think our student athletes know that we have their individual best interests at heart, and we're gonna push them to be successful academically at RCC, athletically at RCC, socially. We're gonna have some fun, we're gonna make some great relationships, but also we're gonna provide the resources and the empathy to get them transferred and be successful beyond RCC.
And you can really see that too when you walk into the Riverside Aquatics complex. I mean, it's a family atmosphere there. The kids are in the office. You guys have the open door policy. I feel like they can come to you with any issue they have, and it doesn't really seem like you have a lot of issues over there. I mean, you guys, get the job done while supporting these student athletes, and that's the number one goal. So
that's it.
It's seen around campus. And we've talked a lot about water polo, but we can't forget that you were named the 2019 OEC Swim Coach of the Year after winning a conference title, first one in nearly 30 years. So describe that experience and that run to the title. How did it feel?
Hey, there are happy accidents, right? No. If I can describe it, it's always a lot of fun when you get to accomplish something that doesn't happen often or ever. And really, I feel like all these questions are just going to lead into it. It's that we're not just building one team and a bunch of individuals. We're actually an entire aquatics program. I even mentioned our close relationship with the women's side in the aquatics program as a whole. Well, we're like that with water polo and swim as well. Not every water polo player swims, and certainly not every swimmer plays water polo, but they know each other, and then they're all in the same team room together, and they go to a lot of the same classes, and they hang out with one another. They're at each other's events constantly, and I really think that helps develop a program that's going to be successful in both water polo and swim. And then in swim, it was really that competitiveness of wanting to do it for each other, wanting to do it for your teammates, really wanting to step up and put up a time that you never even thought was possible, right? Believing in the system, believing in the process. It's those same things that we constantly talk about that in that moment came into fruition, and the guys swam great, and especially at conference where that was fun because we've had success before, but it's always been close, but I'll tell you what's fun. It's fun when you win by a landslide, and that one was pretty fun. So yeah.
Was there one specific moment that you could reflect on where in that conference championship you kind of knew like, oh, we have this in the bag?
Well, in swimming, and not to get too much inside baseball on this, but you can kind of run the numbers. You look at the times and you just look at the sheets and you just know where you're seated, and you could do the math and know. So to be honest, it was the minute that those heat sheets came out, I knew it was, we pretty much had it. And to be honest, it was still a lot of nerves going into it. But the second on that first day, we did our job in prelims, but when we got to the finals and we won that first relay, we kind of knew we were gonna perform. Yeah.
So obviously swimming and water polo they're the same pool, but they're completely different sports, obviously. What are the challenges to balancing those demands? I know you said that, pretty much your water polo team is your swimming team, but there's some players that, don't participate on either squad. So how do you balance that? And if there are challenges, what are they and how do you handle it?
Well, 100%. Like, I mean, if we just relied on our water polo team, we would not have won that conference championship in swim. I mean, we're only going to be so competitive in that. So yeah, you got to go beyond that. I mean, obviously it all comes to recruiting, and it comes to, I have great assistant coaches. Assistant coaches is really, it's a blessing that we have. And that's another thing that we got from our mentor, Dave Almquist. He says, you don't hire assistant coaches, you hire head coaches to be assistants. And that's where we're at. We got head coaches as assistants. And so that's, if for someone that coaches 2 sports, I lean heavily on that, on their expertise and their strengths for sure. They kind of help balance it out, and that allows me also to get on the recruiting trail and recruiting to sports. That's, if you're asking about the difficulties, that might be, I mean, where I would say those difficulties is coaching 2 sports while simultaneously recruiting 2 different sports. But like I said, I just lean on those assistant coaches, and then also we've helped. There's been a culture that was established before I ever got to RCC, and once a student athlete steps onto that pool deck and into that team room and into the huddle, and it kind of runs itself at this point.
Yeah, speaking about those 2 assistant coaches, they're fantastic. I mean, they're out on that pool deck and they're demanding excellence, and it's really refreshing to see. I mean, you see it across the board with RCC athletics, but again, when you walk into the rack, that it's all business, and you guys really emanate that. So, and it's appreciated. Right. Ethan, let's switch gears here. I got just a couple more questions for both of you, but it's a unique time for you student athletes. I mean, some participated a little bit. You got a full season under your belt with water polo, and then for the spring sports, you didn't get to participate. And there's so much uncertainty. What's your viewpoint? How are you staying prepared? How are you staying ready? And what do you hope for in the future?
My viewpoint, I mean, I was going to go to Whittier. I'd be playing right now if, this whole thing didn't happen. And then I ended up backing out of Whittier. And I'm at RCC right now for another year. I mean, I don't need to be, but I can still take classes, I'm just kind of go with the flow. I mean, there's not much I can do, so why stress over it, But, I mean, I'm still planning on playing. I still want to play. And, maybe I can get into somewhere else or somewhere cheaper, because Whittier is very expensive. And, yeah, so that's kind of my viewpoint on everything going on right now.
And if you had one piece of advice for incoming student athletes when we do get back to returning to play, what would that be?
Do your homework, pretty much. The hardest thing at RCC. It's going to be.
Great advice.
It's great advice. And Jake, I want to ask you the same question, obviously from a different viewpoint. We're dealing with a lot right now, obviously with the pandemic and, the social injustice movements and, all during an election, and California's pretty much on fire. So we're firing on all cylinders. In the midst of all this, how do you keep the student athletes engaged in your strategies on keeping them on the right track, both, athletically and academically?
Well, we try to keep contact. We started out with some Zooms, but now it's more just checking in personally, once a week or maybe once every other week. Just keeping in touch, making sure that, number one, we check and see how they're doing personally, and then we check and see how they're doing academically, and then we check and see where they are as far as their transfer. Right, those are kind of the 3 posts that we hit, and then we make sure that they're getting all the resources that they need. Do you need to get some food? Well, because RCC's been providing, and there's other community outreach stuff that we're able to plug them into? You know, how's your textbook situation? You know, do you need to meet with a counselor? Do you need to meet with a tutor? There's a lot of different things. So basically it's check on them personally, check on them academically, check on them for their future, their goal wise, making sure we're on track. And then once again, we just try to plug them into the right resources, make sure that they have what they need. And then also it's obviously like try to get them connected with one another, so make sure that they're still talking to one another, that social aspect, and that you're in constant communication with other people that are experiencing the exact same thing is pretty important. And we're trying to make sure that that's the case, that they keep in contact with one another.
And one piece of advice for the student athletes that are, you know, when we return to play and they get, you know, firing on all cylinders, we're ready to go. What's one piece of advice that you tell them in order to be successful at RCC or anywhere?
I mean, when things are back to normal, we talk about selflessness. If you work with a selfless type of heart, if you're always putting people first, it's amazing how much you end up getting returned back to you, and also how you can get more insight into what's going on in your own life. So if I would say continue with a selfless mentality and a selfless heart, I think things are going to work out pretty well for you.
That's a good piece of advice. And Jay, I have one more question for you, and this is probably the most important question I've asked all day. You know, your culinary skills. What's your go-to dish, and how come I haven't had a taste of it yet?
Dude, it fluctuates. It fluctuates. Right now, I'm doing a lot of smoking and grilling on the old Traeger and the old grill. So we're doing a lot of that. I've been kind of into someone dropped off some fresh caught tuna. So I've been smoking some of that, and that's been pretty delicious. I've kind of been in love with the brisket, but it takes a little, that's a commitment. But I don't know, man, come on over, you pick it, we'll get it done.
I love it. I love the sound of that. All right, guys. Well, again, I appreciate you joining me in our first episode of the Den Discussions. Again, with Jason Northcott, the head men's aquatics coach, and Ethan Saenz, one of the best water polo players from 2019-2020. So I appreciate you guys. Look out for this interview on rccathletics.com, all of our social media outlets, and our YouTube channel. And in the meantime, until we get to see you again, stay safe, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
Thanks, Nico.
All right, guys. Thank you.
See you, Ethan. Take care.
Bye.